actually. Our first speaker this morning is, for this second panel, is Matthew Ryan Smith. And Matthew completed his PhD in art and visual culture at Western University in 2012. His current research addresses affect, trauma, and the ethics of spectatorship in contemporary photography and video practices, with a special attention to indigenous perspectives. Matthew's writings have been featured in several Canadian and international publications, including C Magazine, Artas, Fuse, and Magenta, as well as numerous exhibitions catalogs. In 2012, he curated a group exhibition at the Macintosh Gallery in London, Ontario, entitled Some Things Last a Long Time, which investigates the viewer's relationship to autobiographical artwork. He has forthcoming publications in the Canadian Journal of Native Studies and Topia, Canadian Journal of Cultural Studies. Recently, Matthew was included in Art Info Canada's Top 30 Under 30, a list of those Canadians 30 years or younger who we consider to be showing great industry and promise in the art world. Matthew is going to speak on billboards, dogs and boats and airplanes. Please welcome Matthew.
Thank you. I'm going to apologize in advance for how many times I'm going to say dogs and boats and airplanes in this presentation. I think it's around 20. So, born in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canadian artist Bill Burns is arguably best known for his series Safety Gear for Small Animals, a substantial creative project where Burns and his assistants crafted exactly as the title suggests, safety gear for small animals. Here we see some of his manufactured safety gear, including work gloves, as we see here, personal flotation devices, bulletproof vests, UV goggles, respirators, helmets, and triage tents. Burns serves as the director of the project, which comprises several divisions: a safety gear prototype production division, a conservation and relocation division, a multimedia program, a toll-free telephone service, a prosthetics program, a modest publishing house, and an itinerant museum. Shortly after his first exhibition of the Safety Gear for Small Animals project in New York City's Gallery 303 in 1994, an episode of The Simpsons animated sitcom titled Mom and Pop Art featured Homer Simpson become a conceptual artist who incidentally made safety gear for small animals. And there's Homer. Although Burns was never credited for the idea, it's certainly a bizarre coincidence, and I should mention that Burns never sued The Simpsons for allegedly taking his idea. Though in effect, safety gear for small animals is about animal rescue, relocation, and rehabilitation, many of these themes carry over into his most recent work, specifically how animals and our interaction with them can be used to examine social tensions, ecological debates, and moral quandaries. Burns's latest opus, Dogs and Boats and Airplanes, provides one such example. The series represents a profound immersion in the iconography of travel and the sophisticated commercial industry that enables it. Dogs and Boats and Airplanes is both multisensorial in its focus on object relations and interdisciplinary, and that it involves cinematic appropriation, quotidian social phenomena, and community participation. Comprised of drawings, a photographic series, as we see here, a photo book, a postcard book, a vinyl album, a digital video, a print series, and a collection of salt and pepper shakers in the form of dogs and boats and airplanes. This heterogeneous body of work has been widely exhibited during various stages of development. However, it has yet to be presented in its entirety. Much like the Safety Gear for Small Animals project, Dogs and Boats and Airplanes engages with animal and mechanical interactions in the post-industrial world, largely by way of tactile, relational, and sonic encounters. Burns's preoccupation with the central theme, in this case, as I've stated, dogs and boats and airplanes, and his diligent accumulation of images and objects pays homage to data, particularly their strategies of incongruence and absurdity, in order to question how seemingly unrelated elements can cultivate new aesthetic vocabularies. The photo book that accompanies the Dogs and Boats and Airplanes project is appropriated from celebrated Russian director Sergei Eisenstein's 1944 epic, Ivan the Terrible Part 1, and introduces a tactile element to the otherwise visual spectacle of the film. Book. The black and white photographs in the 192-page Dogs and Boats and Airplanes, as told in the form of Ivan the Terrible, were accumulated over a period of 9 years, between 2002, 2011, and were taken in cities from Canada, Europe, Asia, the Caribbean, and South America. During the opening scene of Eisenstein's film, Ivan is coronated as Tsar of all the people of Russia, before stoutly announcing his militaristic intentions to both friends and enemies of the state. The conceptual and aesthetic relationship between Burns's work and Eisenstein's film is both whimsical and compelling. Take, for instance, chapter 1 of the book entitled Ivan's Coronation, which is what we see here. Here, a small white dog with a ceremonial lei around its neck faces the camera while its tongue hangs loosely from its mouth. On the following pages are grainy, off-center pictures of large military cargo planes in flight and various naval, sailing, freight, and fishing boats on the water. Though Burns's photographs do not faithfully register Ivan's coronation, according to Eisenstein's version of the film, they surely reference the event through allegorical signifiers, such as the elaborate costumes worn by those witnessing the coronation. Ivan's own righteous dictations of power are cleverly echoed by Burns in photographs of a festooned dog, a naval ship, and military aircraft. Elsewhere, in chapter 7, titled Ivan on His Deathbed, Burns appropriates Eisenstein's dramatization of Ivan's sudden illness by documenting dogs immobilized as they idly rest motionless on the ground. In this more literal relationship to the film, Burns uses everyday canines to symbolize Ivan's close proximity to death. And here we see a dog lying on the ground that substitutes for Ivan's illness. But it's actually not sick, I should mention. The photographs can be misconstrued as cute, at times even adorable. I suppose that's arguable. Nonetheless, Burns's complex use of animal symbolism, appropriation, and socio-cultural iconography form a rich aesthetic vision and a biting political commentary. In the pictures of furry animals, floating boats, and flying airplanes lies a sharp condemnation of empire. Military ships patrolling colonized land, commercial vessels supplying countries with cheaply manufactured goods, and tankers shipping oil from so-called liberated nations all speak to disproportionate power relations, the exploitation of labor, and the destruction of natural resources. For Burns, the photographs and his ability to snap them throughout the world via motorized boats and jet engine airplanes respond to a special moment in modernism and history, namely that technological progress has facilitated greater access and mobility in the world, which in turn has changed the character of human perception itself. As David Harvey explains, quote, "Progress entails the conquest of space, the tearing down of all spatial barriers, and the ultimate annihilation of space through time," end quote. Thus, Burns's work also questions the rewards of traveling through physical space by way of modern technology, when doing so transforms our sensory experience and appreciation of the natural world. Burns's concern for material forms of expression find an exciting balance in its auditory companion, the Dogs and Boats and Airplanes Choir, recorded on a limited edition 33 RPM vinyl album. The digital video of the choir performance is currently on display in an exhibition at the University of Buenos Aires. For this work, over 100 8 to 12-year-old students from Lord Lansdowne and Howard Park elementary schools in Toronto were gathered to form a choir directed by Alan Gasser, with Burns himself serving as artistic director. The Dogs and Boats and Airplane Choir has also been performed in a number of countries, including Australia and the United States, using different iterations of participants. The choir project involves a connection to Eisenstein's Ivan the Terrible Part 1 as well. Side A of the album was devised as accompanying music for the photo book Dogs and Boats and Airplanes, as told in the form of Ivan the Terrible. For Burns, the connection between animal and child, as seen in this work and its social collaboration, points to a shared double agency whereby child becomes animal by way of social deviancy. This is Burns's quote. "Animals are deeply connected to us through property relations, agriculture and husbandry. Dogs, for instance, have traveled over several millennia, the entire planet with us. They are part friend and advisor, part worker, part merchandise, and part wolf. They are interlocutors, double agents. The role is tied now to class, now to race, now to class, now to nation, and now to advanced industrialism. In modern industrial societies, children, who play important roles in several of my current projects, share many characteristics of this double agency. They are purity and innocence. They are drug-addled. They are gun-toting. Like dogs and foreigners, they often stand in for the unknown. My boat and airplane works are on the one hand an absurdity, a challenge to our assumptions about what are appropriate themes for art, and on the other hand, they are stand-ins for war, desire, global travel, and industry." End quote. For Burns, the dialectical relationships, such as children and animals, are not only instrumental in stimulating aesthetic discourse, but they also represent an underlying characteristic of the moral or social order. The people and animals that often embody moral virtue can just as easily threaten it. As double agents, in Burns's own terms, each move unpredictably from child, boat, dog, or airplane to outlaw, wolf, battleship, or drone, and in doing so, question the strength and durability of modern communities and nations alike. Side B of the album diverges slightly from this motif by including children voicing the sounds of animals, dogs lapping milk, a tugboat in the fog, a dog kennel, and an airplane cockpit, among several others. In the track Dogs and Boats and Airplanes Mixed Session, various members of the children's choir imitate the sound of a dog kennel, followed by a hull of a boat as it is pressed against by the wind and the sea. And this is done mainly through guttural and throaty resonances. Using barks, yelps, whispers, blows, and whistles, the result is an elaborate, full minute of dexterous manipulation, reminiscent of a dog kennel. Then the sound of distant boats immediately afterward. The timing is orchestral, but the execution is fittingly childlike. And I have a short clip of the piece I'd like to play here. So you get the idea. So the sonances reproduced by the students represent a clash between the animals of the natural world and the vehicles of industrial society. The sonic disharmony that results when these worlds collide in the Dogs and Boats and Airplanes choir reveals intractable tensions and questions the possibility of their lasting coexistence. The illustrative component of the Dogs and Boats and Airplanes opus is wholly similar to the photographic body of work printed in Dogs and Boats and Airplanes as told in the form of Ivan the Terrible, as Burns has abstracted the photographs through pen, ink, and watercolor. Here, though they are again linked to Eisenstein's film, their narrative devices and formal execution appear charming and even playful. They lack the rigid formality that composed photographs tend to preserve. These mostly black and white drawings are rendered on a single page, as diptychs or as a series of 9, as we see here. And much like Dogs and Boats and Airplanes, as told in the form of Ivan the Terrible, these works are imbued with a storyline similar to the photo book, without arriving there completely. And Ivan builds his new army. A set of 9 illustrations displaying dogs and boats and airplanes are painted and washed, resulting in an abstracted variation of the original photographic image. Here and in other drawings, Burns has appropriated not only Eisenstein's film, but also his own photograph, resulting in layers of interpretation, representation, and reinterpretation. For viewers, the intensity of Burns's level of engagement with his subject matter may appear overly enthusiastic, perhaps even obsessive or fanatical. That seems a little, Burns's use of heterogeneous materials, including found objects and audible components, form a conceptual logic that is at once both gripping and bewildering. For instance, in terms of bewildering, part of the Dogs and Boats and Airplanes series is a solemn letter written by Burns's partner, Christine Vero, addressed to Burns's gallerist in Los Angeles. Oddly enough, in the background of the letter, a barely legible watermark reads Dogs and Boats and Airplanes. In the letter, Burns's partner, Christine, writes, quote, "I am writing you because I am concerned about Bill. He has been collecting salt and pepper shakers in the form of Dogs and Boats and Airplanes. He is claiming that it is the world's largest collection of dogs and boats and airplanes, salt and pepper shakers." End quote. There are also paragraphs stipulating Burns's obsession with Eisenstein's film, in addition to personal details about his family. Ultimately, the Dogs and Boats and Airplanes project remains as much an autobiographical utterance as it does a rigorous and considered aesthetic undertaking. And like the Dadists before him, Burns has adopted their preoccupation with irrationality and especially humor. However, the question still remains whether or not Burns's obsession is real, or if it's all part of a larger tactic intended to answer the impossible question of what in fact can constitute art. Bill Burns's subject matter has often involved animals as signifiers of socio-political tensions, current ecological debates, and complex moral quandaries. Indeed, Dogs and Boats and Airplanes is a cunning departure from his fascinating collection of scale model animal protection equipment. Burns offers materials and sensorial encounters intended to engage audiences through affective experience and critical understanding. His opus stands as a nuanced engagement with dimensionality, with the instruments and energies that influence our perception of art and the economies of sensation. Thank you.